let's just imagine that I'd gone into my CRM, pulled a list of our top 100 companies, right? And there's a lot of other use cases for this to make things easier in Sales Navigator. But essentially, what I would do is say, please take this list of companies and turn them into a Boolean search for example. And I always like to give ChatGPT examples so that you can have a more predictable output. It should look like this. Company name or company name or company name. Here is the list of companies. Now, I don't have the list of companies, but let's just say Nike, XYZ. And then what it's going to do is turn that into a Boolean search for me. And if you did that with 100, it's obviously going to save you a ton of time. And now you can paste that into, your past company search. I don't know if blah or XYZ is a company, but you get the point. Right. So there's a lot of use cases for that specific one.
I love that one. What about competition? How do you follow, or what do you look for as it relates to competition?
Yeah, there's so speaking high level, my strategy has always been, especially in SaaS when it's super crowded, and in most markets you step into, people are already using a competitive solution of some sort. Like I was in sales engagement, everyone's using a cadence software of some kind. So you have to understand like market sophistication and where people are typically at. And in my case, it was, I can't just come in talking about a sales engagement tool because everyone's already using one. Mm-hmm. So in terms of like, to your point, John, about competition, we would use like the technologies filter a lot, which is in the account section. And we would find people who are specifically using, like for example, HubSpot Sales Hub. Whoops. Sales Hub. Just saw it. There it is. That's their version of the sales engagement tool, for example. And I don't know if you guys have ever used HubSpot Sales Hub, but it's very basic, very rudimentary. And so that was one that we relied on a lot because we had strong value propositions against them. So we would use the technographic data. I did a play when I was at PandaDoc selling e-signature software, people who used to work for DocuSign, because there was tons of them. Yep. And I just did like a corny icebreaker, like I can't even remember specifically what it was, but it was something I tried in my SDR days that actually got some meetings out of it. And it was something like, hey, saw you're no longer at DocuSign. I guess we're not enemies anymore. Something like that. But it got people to notice and respond. And they took a look, right? I mean, some people are diehards for the companies that they worked for forever, and they're always going to continue to implement DocuSign. But a lot of people were open to checking it out. And so it was the same thing. We went to past company and we would say, DocuSign, and then target those folks.
Nice. Okay. And that would be, again, a separate list that you would have a separate cadence for, versus the same list without that filter. You would save it as a different name of a.
Exactly. So then we would go in. I'm not even seeing the save search option right now. I think my Zoom bar is covering it. But anyways, yeah, to your point, we'd save it and go straight from there. Oh, there we go.
I can see it next to the search. Okay. What about so content keywords, people who follow, I can't find this one, I keep losing it. Where people who follow my company, have you found success with that? Like because it's one thing if they're following me or my leaders, right? So actually, let's hit on two things. One is people who are following my executive team, like my executives. And then there's another one of people who are following my company LinkedIn page, because those tell me two different things, right? And this again goes back to, I can't believe this is one of those things where when people start in a business, like when I do trainings, I'll ask them, hey, how many of you are connected to your top 10 executives here in your company? And it's like five hands go up. It's like, whoa. Like, dude, first of all, just connect with them, first of all, because you're going to get some insights there. So how do you leverage both of those?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Like if you join a new company, your first goal should be find all the low-hanging fruit before you start trying to do cold outbound, right? And that's a perfect example of that. One thing I will say, and if you're at a smaller company, you can get away with this. And funny enough, I actually still have access to it on LinkedIn. But if you're in a smaller company, just ask your marketing person or whoever runs your LinkedIn profile. I still have access to Mailshakes. It's not like I use it, but I'm just showing this for an example.
Yeah, yeah.
And you can actually see profile viewers. So you can go into activity and you say, hey, I just want to use it to see who's actually viewing our company page profile. And this is a little bit more accurate and up to date compared to Sales Navigator. So that's a really good one. You can see what people who are directly engaging with your company, and those are really good prospects to go after, especially if your company page is producing any sort of content.
Mhm.
Um, but to your point, John, yeah, people who viewed my company profile, so
There it is.
following your company, like yeah, so not this example is finding people who are viewing your profile, and you can reach out to them right away because it gives you instant notifications. This is people who are following your company. One like tip I would do is again using that Boolean search feature is take all of your customers, and if you have a ton of customers, you probably can't do this, but taking at least your bigger customers, putting them into an account list called current customers, so that you can exclude that list. Um, and essentially, what that would do, so like let's say this was current customers, a lot of your customers are following your company profile, of course, but this would allow you to exclude the people who are already customers and just go after the fresh new leads.
Nice. Yeah, because that's following, because that to me tells me that they're interested not just in, whatever it is, but they're interested in what we're doing. So there's a
Yep.
higher propensity for them to say, and this is where I look at intent, right? Like, so the intent filter might not be that great, but if
Yeah.
somebody's following your company and following you or engaging with your content, that means there's something going on there. They're looking for information about what you're putting out there. So with that, these type of things where I can say, okay, cool. And again, the goal is to get narrower and narrower and narrower people who are familiar, because right now, I mean, cold anything is brutal. It's just
Yeah.
brutal, right? If somebody is not in market or doesn't know your solution or any of that stuff, for them to, for you to cold outreach, I tell people right now, you almost have to think about cold outreach like emails and calls as a marketing function, because
Yeah.
you're leaving an impression that might lead them to then go take a look at your website to then eventually be somewhat interested. But if they're not actively like, I need something, or I know I need something in this area, you got to get to that point where you are narrowing down who would be most likely to be in your market right now for something. Otherwise, I think it's almost a fool's errand.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's why there's just so, and I know I'm kind of all over the place with a lot of different filters and stuff.
Yep.
But the way I would think about Sales Navigator, to your point, John, is like, what are all like just brainstorm with your team, with your leadership, whatever. What are all the possible buying signals, intent signals that we can think about that would make somebody slightly warmer than dead cold? So you can start with those folks, and there's so many examples of it in Sales Navigator, and we shared that one at in the beginning of a super specific example of finding previous athletes, where you can only figure that out if you really do the brainstorming about who's the best person to reach out to.